Do you want to know how I created this photo of Bordeaux Cathedral in Lightroom? You do? Excellent. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm McEvoy. I'm an architectural photographer, podcaster, writer, blogger, photographer again, and all-round good egg. And in this week's video, which is based on the blog post on my website, McEvoyphotography.com, I want to explain what I've been writing about and tell you a little bit about it. Now, I was hoping to have a screen flow done of the edit so that I could, just put that up basically, rather than talking to you, just have the technology doing the work. But between us, I haven't got around to it yet. So what I'm going to tell you in this video is how I edited the photo that you can see on my blog post. Okay. Here it is. Very nice photo of the spectacular interior of Bordeaux Cathedral in France. Now, I took this photo in 2015 on my Canon 6D with Canon 17 to 40mm f4L zoom lens, my trusty combo. In a previous post, I told you about my magical trick to exclude the crowds from the photo, which is to get my camera, tilt it back a bit, and they're all gone. Genius, I know. So I see lots of things about people processing photos, but a lot of times they don't tell you the actual numbers. Well, I'm here to tell you that the numbers are not the issue, but I know that people find them helpful. So what I've done is I've gone through the process step by step, starting with creating virtual copies, because what I wanted to do was do a new edit of a photo that I edited in 2015 or 2016. I want to do a new edit. I need to forget everything that I've told you in the previous two videos about the taking and processing of this image, which for me is not a problem because I've probably forgotten most of what happened to me yesterday anyway. So I want to do a new edit and I want to compare them at the end, which I just realised I forgot to include in the post. So it's not a very good visual exercise, but if you want to go along to the blog post, McEvoyphotography.com / believe it or not, want to know how I created this photo of Bordeaux Cathedral in Lightroom, snappy I know, then you can see all the screenshots, all the numbers, everything. So first thing I did in Lightroom, because I do all my processing in Lightroom, was create virtual copies of the 3 bracketed images which I took. Now this is how I work. I use HDR. Yes, HDR. Get your pitchforks out, all you purists. HDR is fine, it's just a way of capturing a wider dynamic range than you can with one photo. Nothing wrong with it, nothing grungy. It's just using technology to its best. Now Lightroom has an HDR Merge feature which is fantastic, but before we get on to that, I took virtual copies of the 3 images, that was the point. Virtual copies are virtually that. Haha, see what I did there? They're virtual copies. They don't create any disk space at all. Virtually none, and they mean that you can keep the old edit that you've already done, create virtual copies and do new ones and compare and contrast, which is exactly what I'm doing here. So 3 virtual copies, select the 3 images, then right click, select photo merge. Hang on a minute, let me get this right. I've written the instructions down here. So you got the 3 images. Actually, if you go back to last week's, tell you all about it in the screenshot. So select the 3 images. I use Control H, the keyboard shortcut, and that takes it straight into the processing using the settings from the last time I edited an image. So if you're doing a load of HDR merges in Lightroom, first one you select Photo Merge HDR from the menu, make sure the settings are what you like, and if nothing's changed from one image to the next one that you're doing and so on, you can select your 3 images, Control H, let it work in the background, select the next 3 images, Control H. You can do 20, 30, 40 photos depending on, the performance of your computer and the amount of available RAM. Enough about HDR Merge. This creates one new DNG file, a brand new file. If you've got Lightroom set up right, it will put it on top of a stack with the other 3 images so you can only see the one image. So then, done that, now it's into the editing. First job for me is to crop and straighten and level and what have you. Now these two things happen at the same time, because if you do a massive If you've got a building like that and you've got to bring it back like that, it's going to affect the composition. So I do cropping and the transform panel work, which is adjusting the verticals and the horizontals. I do those together at the beginning. This gives me the final composition that I'm working on, rather than doing a load of editing and then doing that at the end, because there might be stuff in there that you spent time on. That's not an image. So it makes sense to me. Get what you're going to have in the photo straight and true and vertical, and then move on. I do most of my work in the basic panel. The basic panel is not basic. The basic panel is where you apply global adjustments of lighting and other good stuff. What I do, can I zoom in on it? This is a screenshot of this is what I've done. So those are the basic panel adjustments. Now the numbers give you a reference for the amount of stuff I've done to each, but the numbers to me mean nothing. The numbers are recording what I've done with my visual adjustment of the sliders, okay? So you can by all means, go to the blog post, you can take these numbers, you can copy it, you can do what you want. Probably won't work for your image because it's not my image and every image is different. But you get the idea. Play around with the sliders, it's brilliant. Lightroom is brilliant. For the white balance, I tried auto white balance, rubbish. I tried the presets, rubbish. In the end, I used the eyedropper tool, found a neutral part of the photo, again, screenshot in the blog post. Clicked on that, selected it, job done, bang. It doesn't have to take a long time, it doesn't have to be complicated. So the basic panel, a few other things in there. So I've done exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. Then I got the stuff called presence, which is texture, clarity, dehaze, don't use on an image like this. Vibrance, always use, brings out those subtle colours. Saturation, yeah, don't normally use it, but there's a little bit of a tweak on this one. Okay, so you play around, and this is actually what I ended up with. This was quite a funky edit, as you can see there. I've gone for it. The first one I showed you was the import preset adjustments. So this is it, contrast plus 32, highlights down 100, I quite often do that, shadows up 70, whites down 86, blacks up 24, texture. Now, you think about that photo, there's lots of detail and stuff in there, and I want to draw out all that texture and make it as textural as I can. Clarity does the same thing, but in a slightly different way. Dehaze didn't touch, vibrance plus 22, saturation. Very rarely do I use saturation, it's far too much of a blunt instrument. Then I check the sharpening in the detail panel. Bit of dodging and burning. I even show you the areas that I've dodged, which I've lightened a bit, and the bits that I've burned, where I've darkened bits. This is actually better than the screen flow thing, isn't it? And that's it. Sorry, I add a vignette, but I add a vignette to every photo. I don't do any more, so I'm going to read this bit. Excuse me, there are a few points that I want to make. You do not have to use all the panels. Just because they're there, you don't have to use them. You do not have to spend forever editing. Real time, this edit probably took me a couple of minutes, no more. It took me about 20 minutes when I was writing it all out, if not longer. Third point, when you're happy, stop. I used to fiddle around for ages getting that fine, just not knowing when I was happy. Learn what makes you happy and stop. Enjoy yourself. This is meant to be a joy, not a burden. Play with the sliders, go crazy, go right, go left. Do silly things. This is Lightroom, non-destructive editing. You can undo anything, apart from the point at which you export a file out of Lightroom. Once you export the file out, that is it. The file you've exported, that is it. There is no more. But you've still got all the stuff in Lightroom. So you can always undo stuff. You can do virtual copies, play around to your heart's content, do what makes you happy. Right. Oh, I did put them in at the end. So, 2016 edit. 2021 edit. Thankfully, the 2021 edit is lots better. Right, I'm done. thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. I've been Rick McEvoy. Check out my photography blog, rickmcavoyphotography.com/blog. And why not check out the Photography Explained podcast? It's dead good. Episode 62, 3 or 4, I can't remember, has just been published. And there is a website that accompanies it, photographyexplainedpodcast.com. I've been Rick McEvoy. Thanks for joining me. See you on the next video.